Alright, guys, welcome back to Desi Deep Dive. This is possibly like my fourth attempt to record this video without any technical issues, and this is not for the new subscribers who have come after the Pratik roast. This is not how we usually do this. This is a special edition of Desi Deep Dive, and I think it is best for me to do Man of Steel here because Vignesh has a very difficult relationship with the entire DCEU that happened. So let's uh, let's just chuck that part out of the way and discuss Man of Steel. Snyder fan to Snyder fans, or if you are not a Snyder fan, sure. Let's see if you keep an open mind. And Snyder fans, you also have to keep an open mind. Now, let me just address one simple issue, which is why I think this entire outrage is happening. Something and the only validity of it I will talk about. I won't talk about the extreme stuff. For years there has been a section of comic book fans who go into a film expecting a certain character, expecting to see a certain character, and I think that is not the right approach to watch anything. If you walk into a if start telling you a story and you're like, I don't like this character, you should not like the character because maybe I have not described it perfectly, or maybe the character is not very consistent. You can't say that I expected this character. That is not a valid argument, right? So I think this is what comic book fans did with Snyder. They were just not accepting a new interpretation of the character. They're like, oh, Superman has to be about hope. Sure, Snyder's Superman can give you hope, right? If you look at it from that lens, and we will analyze it from that lens. I felt that same thing with when Vignesh was doing it, and because it was a Superman review and not a Man of Steel review, we were just comparing scenes. I felt like I shouldn't go on tangents about Man of Steel, and we should just keep discussing Superman, keep coming back to Superman as much as we wanted. But here, this is a safe space for all of us who want to discuss everything Snyder. Maybe if you like this video, if this video ends up working, we can get into Batman v Superman, a film I think fixes some of the issues with Man of Steel. That's a later discussion. Let's come back to let's get to Man of Steel for the time being. Man of Steel came out in 2013, right after the entire Nolan trilogy of Batman films, and that sort of set the benchmark. And people expected that to be like the gold standard of, okay, this is what DC is, okay, and this is what Marvel is. There is a very clear difference. Marvel takes things more lightly, and then DC takes things more seriously. And there was a lot of talk about, oh, everything is dark, figurative, literally and figuratively, and all of that was chatter online. Twitter had just started, and outrage and clicks and views and all of that was needed. This, for me, is going to be a deep dive on Man of Steel without all the unnecessary nitpicking of it. What I want here is to just dissect what works and what doesn't, because I don't think Man of Steel is a masterpiece. Okay, I'll be honest. I do still like the film, and I'll talk to you about why I like the film, and I'll very objectively talk about why I don't. I won't give you like, oh, look at his expression here. Why is he sad? Why is he aura farming and all of that shit? No, I won't go there. Let's do this structurally, and talk about Krypton first. How the film chooses to begin this story. Okay, so we immediately start with something I think is a really great decision, starting with Kal-El's birth on Krypton, because you can immediately look at how heavy this situation is, how heavy, and what it means to Lara and Jor-El. Right? That's a great decision to show Kal-El's birth, because that essentially is something that is changing Krypton. Right? It's a fresh change in what Krypton is all about. And again, Kal-El's birth is hope in itself for Krypton that this can happen, right? I and uh, Jor-El's expressions, and Russell Crowe is a great actor, so he understands how to emote that properly. Same thing with Lara; she's also a great actress. So for for them, I got that emotion there. I completely loved that first scene where Superman is born. My problem starts immediately after, is that when we see Jor-El at his place, we immediately see Jor-El at the council, right? After there is just one small shot in between where we see the landscape of Krypton. I believe that is not a great way to write a narrative, to construct a narrative. You go from Jor-El to Jor-El again at a different place, and both of those scenes we actually are met with the characters mid scene. We don't see any setup. We hear Superman crying in the first scene, and immediately after, when we see Jor-El, he's already talking to the council members. Structurally and dialogue wise, not a great way to begin, in my opinion. What they could have done is, in between, have a scene with Zod, set it up, set his frustration up, or they could have had something else brewing within Krypton, some destruction they can show. First thing that did not work for me narratively, and again, this is a problem. This is what I mean, where Zack is a visual storyteller, but he is not very focused on narrative. ऐसा नहीं उसको समझ में नहीं आता है narrative, उसको समझ में आता है. He's just not very focused on it, and these things they keep popping up. ये ये उसका स्टाइल है, एंड सबको हजम नहीं होता है वो स्टाइल. बट अल्टीमेटली फॉर मी इट्स अ स्टोरी, और तुमको एक तरीके से बोलनी है वो स्टोरी एक अब्रप्ट कट्स के साथ या ऑड सीन्स स्टिच टुगेदर के साथ नहीं बोल सकते. दिस इज एन एग्जाम्पल. Another, so now in that council scene we get to understand, okay, Krypton, वहां पे पता चल जाता है Krypton में प्रॉब्लम क्या है. That there is an entire council, पूरी एक जनरेशन है जिनको एक्सेप्ट ही नहीं करना है, जो अपने सीट में कंफर्टेबल है. एंड you also understand Jor-El as a character. He is patient, वो frustrated है obviously, but he is somebody who wants to follow the rules. वो लॉ एंड ऑर्डर फॉलो करता है, लाइक मुझे मेरे को काउंसिल के पास जाना है करने के लिए. एंड देन वी सी Zod कम इन, और आइडियोलॉजी क्लैश इमीडिएटली हो जाता है. Zod believes that लॉ एंड ऑर्डर इट्स बियॉन्ड दैट नाउ. ठीक है, भले वो मिलिट्री का बंदा हो. ठीक है, मिलिट्री कू होते हैं. सो Zod was essentially carrying a military coup. तो Zod फ्रस्ट्रेट हो गया है, और Zod को अब एक कू करना है. He wants Jor-El on his team. He understands how big of a deal Jor-El would be on his team. But obviously Jor-El is principled, and Zod has very different principles. He is more focused on what to do and not how to do it. Okay, Jor-El is focused on both what to do and how to do it. That's a definition of a hero. Somebody who concerns themselves with मुझे ये करना है, मुझे अच्छी चीज करनी है और मुझे अच्छे से करनी है. नॉट Zod. Zod is like, मुझे अच्छी चीज करनी है, आई वॉन्ट टू सेव क्रिप्टॉन, बट मुझे कैसे भी करना है. राइट, दैट्स एन एंटी हीरो. एंड Zod इज इन दैट मोमेंट एन एंटी हीरो. वो बाद में आके वो विलन बन जाता है, बिकॉज देन both of those things are bad what he's trying to do. Another thing I like here is that Snyder understands physicality. Okay, Snyder understands weight. So this is something that people don't really notice or people don't really care about. अगर तुम nitpick कर रहे हो फिल्म में, तो ये सब छोटी चीज notice भी करो. All the guns that these people are carrying, you can feel that these are not just props. They feel like actual guns. The weight has been acted out. It feels like they carry weight. Okay, and again, they stop you or they limit you from having a great action scene, having a fluid action scene, but that is intentionally done. The armor is heavy, so again, it limits you from being more flexible, which is why वो armor जाके end में निकाल देता है Zod. But coming back to Krypton, then we arrive at a great visual shot that is Jor-El holding the Codex, which you might remember is like a reference to Hamlet. Just Hamlet is holding that skull, and the idea is that Jor-El is pondering over, the philosophy of what is happening around him. Is there is death. This codex holds the key to everything for life, death, for Krypton in general. So he's holding that and he's pondering. There is a moment, and it's a reference shot, right? It's a great visual storytelling shot where we get immediately. If you get the reference, you get the metaphor. If you just see Russell Crowe and you see him holding the skull, you also get what the visual that is being trying to be conveyed. So again, great shot. Okay, so this is something that I wanted to point out that Zach has tried to do intentionally, which is he has used a lot of handheld camera movements and sort of random zoom ins, um, to give you the feel of being on Krypton. And this is not just here; he has used the same thing everywhere, so that if you are watching that scene, especially in IMAX, you feel like you are there. Okay, it gives it a realistic feeling, obviously, but it also gives you a sense of urgency. Shaky cam does that, and it makes you feel like you're there, so you relate to it a bit more. Props to Zach for doing that. Now comes the discussion between Jor-El and Lara that I think should be talked about. Now Jor-El thinks that Superman will, like, Kal-El will be a god to humans, um, and Lara is a little bit more negative there. That she thinks that, they will turn against him, they will kill him. Now, again, that shows the contrast between how they think and a traditional husband and wife role. The wife is more worried about the son, and the husband is less worried. He's worried more about, the principle of, okay, I'm sending him there. What is it going to be like, his responsibilities, that he will be a god to them, he'll be a bridge between both worlds, all of those things. I like that, the characterization. I like most things on Krypton. I enjoyed. What I did not appreciate about Krypton, and I will talk about it after a while as well, is that we don't spend too much time sort of understanding where all of this began. The entire conflict began. I would like to appreciate Hans Zimmer when Lara is there with Kara Gugino's voice, and they're walking towards the explosion, the destruction of Krypton, and they're just witnessing it. I love that. Like, they switch the music from a heavy metal almost to violin, and that switch almost hits you. Okay, it's a destruction of Krypton you feel because of that music and because of the words of Lara. Now we come to Earth, where most of the problems start for me. The first time we see Kal-El on a ship, right? And that the infamous, or the famous, whatever you want to call it, oil rig scene, where we witness him working on a ship, and it is here that his arc starts immediately, which is a bold choice, that we see a human help him, immediately shout at him after, but help him. So that works. For me, it worked. I loved that these are some bold choices that the filmmakers made to sort of get you into the character. Uh, we start in a very interesting way, and then Superman saves the people on the oil rig. Now, the way Superman saves them is why I bring this thing into question. Based on what we see Kal-El go through on Earth, Superman feels like he is saving people for the sake of saving people. And I know many of you might not agree with it, because Kal-El at that point in his arc is still confused whether he belongs. Right? This is a movie about belonging. That is the whole point of it. And I also like the non-linear storytelling here, which is like we keep going back and going forth and going back and forth with Clark's childhood. One of my complaints begins here. There is a scene where Clark इज इन अ क्लासरूम एंड वो उसको पूरा सबके वो दिख रहे होते हैं, एक्सरे विजन उसका आ रहा होता है, and that again is a moment. Okay, and then he gets frustrated, he runs out of the class. We see him struggle with his powers, right? Sure. And then we see other people call him a freak. Once Martha comes, he comes out. Martha gives him a pep talk. Chota sa is like, then imagine. Okay, so what you have conveyed to me in this scene is that Superman, through his mother, wants the world to be small. He says the world is too big, and that is part of his arc. Okay, the world is too big. He doesn't, as a child, he doesn't want to do big things. He's like, नहीं नहीं, responsibility चाहिए ही नहीं मुझे. Okay, I just want to be a normal person. That's what he thinks. Um, and Martha sort of doubles down on it in that moment. It's like, then make the world small. So I like that. But as soon as he comes out and he is hugging Martha, he asks her, "What is wrong with me?" We never let to listen what Martha said. I know it was intentionally done, but I can't for the life of me think or understand how. क्यों? दिस इज अ ग्रेट पेरेंटिंग मोमेंट. वो उसको क्या बोलती है मुझे जानना है. आई दिस इज हाउ यू इंट्रोड्यूस मार्था टू मी. मुझे क्लार्क समझ में आ गया इस मोमेंट में. ठीक है, मुझे मार्था का इन्फ्लुएंस समझ में आ गया इस मोमेंट में. बट दैट आंसर व्हेन शी शुड टेल क्लार्क दैट ओके नहीं नहीं तुम नॉर्मल ही हो. ओके, वी नेवर गेट टू लिसन टू व्हाट शी हैज टू से. ऑब्वियसली शी सेड समथिंग बिकॉज शी इज क्लार्क. वो देख के उसको बोलती है, राइट? बट क्या बोलती है, वी हैव नो आइडिया. That is one of my first complaints with the film. um, I don't think you should cut away उस moment पे. बहुत important moment है वो. अगर one more scene again, not nitpicking, um, because I want to talk about character consistency here and what this Superman is and the contrast between this Superman and जो अभी हमको Superman मिला है. Superman जब पानी से बाहर आता है, द फर्स्ट थिंग ही डज इज ही steals clothes. That does not sit right with me. For me now in this moment, this is not Superman. This is a very conflicted Clark. ठीक है, दिस इज नॉट सुपरमैन एंड दिस इज इंटेंशनली डन. पूरी मूवी में ये सुपरमैन नहीं है, लोग बुला रहे हैं उसको बट ये सुपरमैन है नहीं. दिस इज अ वेरी कन्फ्लिक्टेड क्लार्क कैंट बैटलिंग सेंस ऑफ बिलोंगिंग. उसको बिलोंगिंग का सेंस ही नहीं है, उसको लोग कंफ्यूज करे जा रहे हैं अर्थ पे भी. Right, from the moment he is saved by a person and then he's immediately shouted at. The mother is telling him ki make the world small. Or then Jonathan is like, you are meant for great things. tum you are the answer, son. You are the answer to are we alone in the universe. A child in that moment is thinking, oh, I'm special, I don't want to be, because he doesn't want to be. He says that, can't I just be your son? That is what he wants. That is what he wants. He just wants to be a son to Clark and to Jonathan and Martha. But then दोनों उसके parents opposite advice दे रहे हैं उसको. So as a child he is confused, and we can see that he is confused because जब Zod आता है first time, he has to and उसको surrender करने के लिए बोलता है, he has to go to a church. It doesn't sit right with me. उसको घर में अच्छी एडवाइस नहीं मिली कभी, उसको चर्च जाना पड़ रहा है. I understand the church scene is important because जो father उसको जो advice देता है कि you have to take the leap of faith. I understand that. ठीक है. But you should have gone to Martha. But वो Martha उसको confuse, उसके parents उसको confuse किए जा रहे हैं पूरी film में. So I understand why I didn't go to her. But then there is no character consistency either आगे जाके. Now let's come back to that infamous maybe moment. वो तो हाथ वाला तो बाद में करेंगे. The reason we were pissed off about that is because Jonathan again has a very important moment and यहाँ पे कट नहीं करते हैं, यहाँ पे कट कर देना चाहिए था because वो बहुत खराब आंसर देता है, which is maybe. Like Clark asks him कि should I just not save people? Should I have let them like my people die? Because Clark does not want this responsibility. कोई बच्चे को इतनी responsibility कौन देता है? Mature नहीं है ना वो. So it's like मैं इतने सब बच्चों की life का responsibility मेरे ऊपर, मेरे को नहीं चाहिए. Right? So he's looking to his father. Like मरने देता मैं उनको. And father has no concrete answer. Now you can see that this is a realistic father, or like this is a conflicted father as well. right? But then you cannot defend Jonathan Kent. ओके, उसको अगर कन्फ्लिक्टेड पेरेंट्स मिले हैं तो वो ऐसा ही बड़ा होगा, एंड वो ऐसा ही बड़ा हुआ है. एंड ही and I've talked to Vignesh about this. Clark never has a childhood. He was ripped of his childhood. Okay, and there is a visual representation of it in the film. Is when Petros की मम्मी जॉनथन और मार्था से बात करने आती है अबाउट द इंसिडेंट, अबाउट द बस इंसिडेंट. वी सी जॉनथन लुकिंग आउटसाइड एंड लुक एट एन एम्प्टी स्विंग. वो स्विंग थोड़ी हिल रही है एंड खाली है. दैट इज a visual representation of Clark's stolen childhood, his stolen innocence. Right? That empty swing you see, and you're like, Clark never had that. Right? He is too burdened by responsibility and burdened by his parents not giving him a clear way to, or a clear path, that he is growing up conflicted. So that, I think, is an important point to discuss. Um, now that we've discussed it, let's go to that bridge scene. Now, for me, I understand why the scene happened, because Clark had to learn that Clark had to see human sacrifice, because, believe it or not, this is something that he it's a feeling that he sort of only gets when it comes to Earth, that there is somebody who has given up his life, sacrificed his life to just protect my secret. And it doesn't sit well for him. But immediately you see that the father's death takes over, and he never gets to process his feelings. Okay, which is again a distinct Man of Steel problem with Clark, which is he never gets to process his feelings because there is no outlet. Right? We talked about this with सुपरमैन, कि उसके पास एक इकोसिस्टम बिल्ट है. तो अगर वो किसी के पास एडवाइस के लिए जाता है, वो उसको क्लियर एडवाइस देते हैं. राइट? द ओनली टाइम आई सी अ गुड क्लियर एडवाइस बीइंग गिवन टू क्लार्क इज विद लोएस, एंड लोएस इन दिस फिल्म इज रिप्रेजेंटिंग ह्यूमैनिटी फॉर क्लार्क. That tornado scene is a good scene in the sense that I understand what it is trying to set up. It is adding to Clark's opinions of what this world is about and what his father sacrificed himself for, but the way it is written is bad. The father's sacrifice could have come in a more different way, because logically Clark could have saved the father. I understand कि एक lore है पूरा of Jonathan Kent dying of a heart attack, but वो अलग है, वो इस फिल्म से पूरा अलग है. यहाँ पे लेसन अलग है, बट वो लेसन जिस तरह से दिखाया है, इट विल नॉट सिट राइट विथ यू. It does not it is not very impactful, because that scene again is not very well set up. And now I will go back to a problem with character consistency of Jonathan Kent. गाड़ी में, राइट बिफोर द टॉर्नेडो, वो गाड़ी में जा रहे होते हैं, एंड जॉनथन एंड क्लार्क आर इन द कार. क्लार्क इज कंप्लेनिंग कि मुझे बड़ी चीजें करनी है, मुझे खाली आ खेत में नहीं बैठे रहना है. राइट? रिमेंबर, द मदर इज लाइक मेक द वर्ल्ड स्मॉल, एंड फादर इज लाइक यू आर मेंट फॉर ग्रेट थिंग्स. राइट? Jonathan is like, make, you are meant for great things, you are an alien. And now this man, this son, Clark, wants to go and do big things, and Jonathan is like, farming में क्या role है? Not very consistent, I guess. Because Clark here essentially is a teenager. दिखता नहीं है वो, but is a teenager. And like a typical teenager, he wants to break out from this farm lifestyle that he has had. And his response is the most teenager cliche response of all time, which is, अरे मेरा बाप भी नहीं तू तो यार, तू तो कहीं मेरे को उठा के ले आया था. It's a very teenager response, orphan teenager response to uh, like the most basic of disagreements with the father. This is not a new disagreement with the father, right? Characters are not consistent. You may disagree. We can have a conversation about it in the comment section, but these are narrative issues I have with the film, and this is for me just what Clark's childhood is something we may not have covered something, but so far I you understand why Clark grew up this way. Clark never had a childhood. Clark was burdened with responsibilities and was had never had an outlet. We never see that outlet. You and we also never see him process those feelings. He's an angry teenager. Now let's go to that scene in the at the diner जहाँ पे क्लार्क काम कर रहा होता है एज अ वेटर और whatever वहां पे, and this is going to be a reply to because I had not seen Man of Steel in a long time, so I could not talk about this, but Pratik said कि वहां पे मिलिट्री को अच्छा दिखाया गया है, कर्तव्यनिष्ठ दिखाया गया है. नहीं. At that diner there are two military personnel who are laughing at Clark being bullied, who are doing nothing when of a woman is harassed. Okay, bordering essay, and there's this there talking about whatever. So कर्तव्यनिष्ठ तो नहीं दिखाया है मिलिट्री वालों को, मे बी आगे जाके दिखाया होगा, बट यहाँ वी कैन सी कि ये कोई एजेंडा नहीं है इस फिल्म में. जो वो पकड़ रहा है ना प्रतीक, वैसा कुछ है नहीं. ओके, उसके पॉजिटिव्स बहुत अजीब है इस फिल्म को लेके. Now we see that we see that angsty teenager in Clark. We see how temperamental he is because he's never processed any feelings in his life. Um, we see कि क्लार्क डायरेक्टली डील नहीं करता है, बट वो उसकी ट्रक की माँ बहन कर देता है बाहर जाके, एंड दैट शोज दैट साइड ऑफ हिम. इट शुड बी क्लियर कि क्लार्क इस पॉइंट पे उसका मेंटल स्टेट क्या है. ओके, ही इज डैंगलिंग between he could turn into Joker at any point. एक कुछ खराब होता है ना उसके साथ, उसके पास जीरो इकोसिस्टम है, उसके पास कोई नहीं है जो उसको क्लियर मैसेज दे रहा है, जो उसको ढंग की एडवाइस दे रहा है. ओके, सो वेरी क्लियरली ही कैन जस्ट मूव टू दिस. एंड okay, I'm not saying Martha and Jonathan were bad parents. I just think that they were conflicted parents जिनकी लाइफ में एक एलियन आ गया and they had no idea what to do about it. They had they didn't understand what they had to say in those moments, but we never saw them struggle. Okay, you need a scene where they struggle. It's just one scene where they are discussing. We do I like Martha आके उसको बोलती है, why did you say maybe, why did you say that maybe they should all die, and Clara is like, I don't know, I don't know what to tell him, I don't know how to be a father to him. इतना, सिर्फ इतना एक सीन डाल देते ना, 10x बेटर हो जाता, 10x बेटर. एंड वो सब कंप्लेंट्स श्योर चले नहीं जाते, जिसको मजाक उड़ाना है वो उड़ाएगा, जिसको क्रिटिसाइज करना है करेगा, बट फॉर मी आई थिंक इट वुड हैव added so much to Jonathan and Martha, and it would have made us understand what they were going through, because we don't see that. We don't see them struggling with understanding how to raise an alien. वो चाहिए मुझे. And I understand this is a film about Clark and his inner struggles, but we also need to see other inner struggles as well. अगर तुम इतना उसमें घुसे हुए हो. Now I think we meet Lois, and I'm not going to. This is already a long discussion, but we are. So we meet Lois, and I immediately am not a big fan of her. That is a problem. Okay, Lois ka character is someone who should be a rock for Clark. She is meant to be that person जो उसको ठीक करती है. ठीक है, उसको उसका ये जो डैंगल कर रहा है वो गुड और बैड में, वो उसको गुड की तरफ लेके जा रही है. शी शुड बी दैट पर्सन, बट शी इज नॉट. शी इज कॉकी. वी डोंट सी दैट ह्यूमैनिटी इन हर. देयर इज नो सेटअप ऑफ दैट. वो आते ही वो शिट टॉक करने लगती है लोगों को. एंड देन व्हेन ही सीज हर, एंड वो जो शिप पे वो लोग मिलते हैं, श्योर वो सीन इनसिग्निफिकेंट है मेरे लिए, बट इमीडिएटली आफ्टर दैट जब वो पेरी से बात कर रही होती है वहां जाके, एंड शी इज लाइक, वी नीड टू टॉक अबाउट दिस, वी नीड टू टॉक अबाउट दिस एंटायर थिंग, ये जो मैं इससे मिली, जो भी हुआ मेरे साथ. एंड पेरी इज लाइक नो, एंड शी इज लाइक, आई एम अ पुलिट्जर प्राइज विनिंग रिपोर्टर. Not how she should behave. This is not, for me, A person who believes in good, who is that hopeful person for Clark, should not talk this way. And again, this is why Amy Adams's Lois is almost universally hated. Even a lot of Snyder fans that I talk to, they don't like Lois, and they don't like Clark and Lois's chemistry because दोनों एक जैसे ही लगते हैं. They should be contrasting because Clark is a cynical person. Clark does not really believe that people need to be saved. उसको पता ही नहीं क्या करना है लाइफ में, उसको पता ही नहीं कि वो अर्थ में बिलोंग करता है या नहीं. And Lois is the one who should represent humanity for us. And Lois is being like this. The first good thing Lois does is she drops the case. She's like नहीं 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 छोड़ रहने दो, because वो क्लार्क से बात करती है, right? And but we never see that setup. We never see that side of her before. We only see cocky Lois and then Lois who has dropped. क्यों क्यों ड्रॉप किया? क्या क्या जाग गया तेरे अंदर? कौन सी ह्यूमैनिटी जाग गई? अभी तक तो रिपोर्टर, पुलित्जर प्राइज विनिंग रिपोर्टर थी तू. अब क्या हो गया? हाँ, अब क्लार्क से एक बार मिल ली, देख लिया कितना हॉट है, देख लिया नॉर्मल इंसान है, माँ है उसकी, एंड यूर लाइक चलो अब मैं रिपोर्टर नहीं हूँ, अब मेरे एथिक्स गए, अब मैं ड्रॉप कर दूंगी केस को इंसान को बचाने के लिए. You set that up first. Set up that Lois is this person. Let's set up that Lois is a good person who would do that. And then these actions would make sense. Would make sense. You show that she's a relentless Pulitzer Prize winning reporter, and then you show this. Again, these are narrative problems. These are character issues that are never talked about when the film is criticized. These are the problems I have with the film. एट दिस पॉइंट आई फील लाइक ओके फाइन, लाइक 50 मिनट हो गई है फिल्म को और कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ही नहीं आया अभी तक. आपने सिर्फ क्लार्क को देख रहे हैं कि हाँ वो ऐसा कैसे हो गया. देयर इज नो सेटअप ऑफ द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट प्रॉपर कि अर्थ पे, क्रिप्टॉन पे हमने देख लिया है, बट कोई प्रॉपर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट आया नहीं है अभी तक. दिस इज माई, आई थिंक वन ऑफ माई बिगेस्ट प्रॉब्लम्स विथ द फिल्म इज दैट when he first flies, that scene is visually so brilliant. And I'm not just talking about it looking brilliant, I'm talking about the expression on Superman's face. Okay, that is a teenager who has gotten powers. Sure, he is 30 when he gets his powers in the film, but mentally he is still that teenager who has learned how to fly. Look at what he does in that moment. He's laughing. He has that innocent laughter going on, like ये मेरे को पावर मिल गई, ठीक है. And again, he immediately starts to explore, like a curious teenager would. ठीक है, वो अरे पावर मिल गई, अब देखते हैं मैं यहाँ जा सकता हूँ क्या, अब देखते हैं मैं यहाँ जा सकता हूँ क्या, पहाड़ के बीच में मैं ऐसा करता हूँ, मैं ऐसा करता हूँ, मैं अर्थ से बाहर चला जाता हूँ. दैट्स अ टीनेजर, दैट्स अ प्रॉपर टीनेजर इन क्लार्क. वी सी यहाँ पे कंसिस्टेंसी हमको दिखती है क्लार्क के कैरेक्टर में, एंड दैट इज गुड राइटिंग. ग्रेट म्यूजिक, ग्रेट फिजिक्स ऑफ द सीन. अगेन स्नाइडर अंडरस्टैंड्स दैट. वो जो सोनिक बूम आता है ना जब क्लार्क उड़ता है, ओह इट्स, ठीक है. जस्ट द फिजिकलिटी ऑफ हिम फ्लाइंग इज रियली गुड. उसमें भी शेकी कैम है, उसमें भी वी फील लाइक हम उसके पीछे उड़ रहे हैं उसके साथ. दैट इज ऑल्सो ग्रेट, राइट. एंड देन वी सी, सो आई वुड से फ्लाइंग सीन्स हियर much better than Superman. Okay, visually Superman is not very good. Visually Man of Steel is miles ahead for me. ओके, बट स्टोरी टेलिंग में नया सुपरमैन फॉर मी इज बेटर, बिकॉज वो जिस तरह से उन लोगों ने ये नैरेटिव और ये कैरेक्टर कंसिस्टेंसीज रखे हैं ना, वो मुश्किल है रखना, और वो यहाँ पे नहीं हुआ है. आई द वन थिंग आई एम नॉट, द चर्च सीन, आई अंडरस्टैंड व्हाई इट एग्जिस्ट, बट व्हाई डज ही गो टू द चर्च? वी नेवर सी क्लार्क इज सम रिलीजियस पर्सन. इट्स ऑलमोस्ट लाइक उसके पास लिटरली कोई नहीं है, एक इंसान नहीं है उसकी लाइफ में. लाइक कि चल यहीं चले जाते हैं, या ये तो यार इतना सिनिकल इंसान नहीं होगा मेरे को जो उल्टी एडवाइस देगा. और फादर वॉज नॉट वेरी सिनिकल, सो गुड इनफ. दिस ब्रिंग्स मी टू अ वेरी सिंपल criticism that I have with Man of Steel, which is like thematic storytelling and just narrative storytelling. There is a big difference between both. sticking to themes throughout the film is good, but the narrative is not supporting that level of storytelling. Okay, तुम्हारा narrative weak है, तुम्हारा thematically film बहुत strong है, but तुम्हारा narratively film बहुत weak है. हाँ, तो Clark's internal struggle thematically we can see constantly, but narratively we don't see that much. Okay, a shot of Clark being there and understanding, like that scene जहाँ पे वो जो aura farming वाला बोल रहे हैं ना, जो लोग, that is, we see it on his face, that inner struggle. It's like, क्या हो गया यार, ये क्यों every time I believe in people, people disappoint me. That's the expression. Now, one scene I would like to talk about, which again is a character consistency thing for me, is that scene where Zod comes and threatens Clark's mother for Codex. ठीक है. Look, this is again, Clark is very immature in terms of decision making because again वो teenager है, right? Which is why when he takes Zod away, वो तीन लोग वहीं पे फार्म में ही है, मार्था के साथ ही है, वो लोग कुछ भी कर सकते हैं वहाँ पे. But for Clark, that anger, that emotion for his mother takes priority over anything logical, right? He is willing to put his mother's life in danger just because he's so angry at Zod for threatening his mother. It's consistent with his character, and the problem is that people are not ready to accept this Superman. I accepted कि अरे टीनेजर जैसा ही बिहेव कर रहा है, वो बड़ा ही नहीं हुआ, उसको चाइल्डहुड ही नहीं मिला, वो क्यों बड़ा होगा? उसको रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी में पकड़ा दिया तुम लोगों ने, फिर बोल रहे हो कि हाँ मार देते चलता, हमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. This person is never going to grow up unless you give him mature, you have him experience these things and make a mistake, which is why people have problems with him. When people say कि अरे ये सुपरमैन को ह्यूमन लाइफ की नहीं पड़ी, एक्सेप्ट इट, उसको नहीं पड़ी है. वो ओके ठीक है, वो जॉड को ऊपर स्पेस में लेके जाता है एंड में, वो तो वो सब छोड़ो, ठीक है. यहाँ पे एक्शन सीन्स के टाइम पे, while they are well shot and you can see the physics of them really well, he constantly makes very simple mistakes. जैसे वो फेयोरा के साथ जो होता है, द बिग गाय, उसको उठा के सीधा ही ट्रेन के ऊपर वो फेंक देता है, एंड देन दैट लीड्स टू अ बिग एक्सप्लोजन. वेरी क्लियरली वुड हैव किल्ड समबडी. एंड इज क्लार्क कंसर्न्ड? नो. क्लार्क, for Clark, this is the priority. Clark is only thinking about, okay, I just need to deal with the situation, ये खत्म हो जाएगा, इनको मुझे खत्म करना है. कैसे? Not much concern. For gun Superman, that is a concern. Clark is thinking about, okay, I need to beat these people, but I also need to make sure कि लोग ना मरे. For Man of Steel's Clark, thinking about saving lives is there. I see it. Right? He does save people. It's not like he doesn't, but that's a secondary thought. And I think for me that is consistency with the character because he is a teenager. मैं बहुत बार टीनेजर बोल रहा हूँ, but that is my take on the character. That Man of Steel is about a boy who has never grown up because of having conflicting parents, and um, he's burdened with responsibilities that he does not know what to do about. Um, he will obviously grow up to be this person. One scene I really like again is that, and इसमें मार्था मुझे दिख जाती है, who Martha is and what her priorities are. When Superman returns after that entire fight, Martha, the first thing she's doing is she's looking at the old family photos. She loves what she had with this family. She loves Clark. She loves Jonathan. Okay, वो फैमिली फोटोज देख रही है रबल में. दिस इज द ओनली थिंग शी इज, एंड दैट इज तो ईंट पत्थर है तो बन जाएगा, बट दिस द थिंग शी सेविंग इज द फैमिली एल्बम. वो उसको अच्छा, वो उसका प्रायोरिटी है, राइट? सो अगेन, I'm not saying Lois is the only person representing humans here. Martha is as well. Jonathan is as well. Jonathan ka sacrifice counts. Martha's warmth that she provides to Superman, and we see more of that in BVS, by the way, that counts. It adds to Superman's arc in maturing a little bit into, and that will be a problem afterwards. But here, I want to cover a few things. One is Fiora is a formidable villain in the sense that it's the kind of I henchman character that I love. Unwavering, superiority complex, way more powerful than Clark is, and understands or has a very clear evolutionary advantage in the fight. A great all in all character. Fiora is somebody I would like to see again. And we never saw confirmation of her dying. So maybe she is alive. But again, Snyderverse तो अभी पता नहीं क्या होगा. But if it comes back, I would like to see Fiora again, and maybe working for Superman at this point. Maybe a separate Fiora TV show also would work. But Snyder's Fiora was one of my favorite villains in the entire DCEU. Like if she was even like in 5 kilometer radius of me, I would feel threatened. A well written, a very strong villain. The way she dies, not a fan. That final scene of Zod, where not the final scene, coming back to that scene where Superman makes the decision कि Krypton had its chance. It was never a conflict. It was never another conflict for him. It was an easy decision for him to choose Earth. Krypton पे तो वो रहा ही नहीं है. उसको कुछ पता ही नहीं Krypton के बारे में. तो क्यों Krypton को choose करेगा? We never see that. It's the only thing is the only arc here is him accepting Earth as his planet. That's the only thing. It is not about Krypton versus Earth, and it's not very convincingly represented or very convincingly articulated to us, because the one person in his adulthood years who is supposed to do this, supposed to help him achieve that, is Lois, and Lois is not a well written character. Amy does a good job because Amy Adams ka craft बहुत strong hai, but Lois is not a well written character, and I blame the writing team. I blame Goyer and Nolan, and Snyder to that extent. ठीक है, वो उन्होंने लोइस का कैरेक्टर शैलो रखा बहुत, एंड उनकी केमिस्ट्री भी बहुत वीक थी. वी नेवर गेट टू सी a shared experience between them. We never get to see something go wrong between them. A relationship, a strong relationship is shown when there is conflict and people get over that conflict. Look at the fight in Superman, in the new Superman film. They get over it. We see them have a big fight. We see how they're both affected by that fight, and we see them both forget their issues and then come together. स्लोएस्ट चीज कि अरे उसको वो भी एक एग्जिस्टेंशियल क्राइसिस में घूम रहा है. ही नीड्स माय सपोर्ट राइट नाउ, एंड शी सपोर्ट्स हिम. Lois and Clark here in Man of Steel are not a great couple. They never go through anything bad. It's not a strong relationship, and Lois is not a strong character. Some of the things I appreciate. One is I like that when Superman finally kills Zod, people were like pissed off about, oh अरे उसको तो नहीं मारना चाहिए था. नहीं, Zod gave him no option. He effectively said कि this there is only one way this ends, either you die or I do. वो वहीं पे बता दिया उसने कि वो मारना बंद ही नहीं करेगा. Zod is a force of, it's an unstoppable force. He just wants Krypton to exist. वो उसको यहाँ पे उसको लेके आना है, टेराफॉर्म करना है उसको प्लैनेट, राइट. एंड द टेराफॉर्म वाला थिंग इज अगेन अ विजुअल दिस थिंग की ओके क्लार्क इज डिस्ट्रॉइंग दैट टेराफॉर्मर or world engine is what it is called, is like a visual representation of Earth is choosing Earth over, oh sorry, Clark is choosing Earth over Krypton, which is not a difficult decision ultimately for him. um Clark repenting after killing Zod, again a good scene. This is where Clark has actively unalived someone, and it immediately hits him. And Lois has to be there. कैसे भी आई पता नहीं, but Lois has to be there because she is the rock here. ठीक है, वो उसको ढंग की एडवाइस दे सकती है वहाँ पे, बिकॉज़ शी इज़ नॉट अ कॉन्फ्लिक्टेड कैरेक्टर लाइक हिज पेरेंट्स वर, राइट? लोइस इज़ क्लियर इन व्हाट शी फील्स अबाउट क्लार्क. A few things again. Small details that I noticed when Lois is interrogating Clark, वो पूरा रूम में पीछे behind the line लिखा होता है. That's again supposed to represent that Clark is dangling between the lines. Okay, it's supposed to say stay behind the line, and part of it is rubbed out, so we don't see that immediately. Okay, that dialogue, "You are a monster, Zod, and I'm going to stop you." Is that what you should say here? They could have come up with something better for Zod to for Clark to say. Um, something about something that would send the message clearly. You're a monster, Zod, and I'm going to stop you. Sounds very cliche, very generic, and it's not very quoted. And you had this was a moment where you could have had a quotable moment. Did not happen. One more thing. Your city, okay, Metropolis, uska city to Metropolis. Metropolis has gone through one of the biggest disasters of all time in your world, right? उस रबल के बीच में kissing Lois in front of everyone is, I don't even want to say bad. It is horrible. It shows insensitivity towards everybody. For him right now is Tharak is what matters. कि वो हो गया, चलो चुमा चाटी करते हैं. Then Zod comes. Why Goyer, क्या Snyder, what were you thinking? Did you not see the rubble around? ग्रीन स्क्रीन लगा रखी थी, कोई बात नहीं, बट एडिट नहीं कर सकते थे. ये सेंसर बोर्ड को एडिट करना चाहिए था, वो क्लिस नहीं. सुपरमैन वाली वो दिस वन मेक सेंस बिकॉज सिटी इवैक्यूएट हो गई थी उस पॉइंट पे. सो आई एम गेसिंग नोबडी डाइड, बट यहाँ पे पीपल डाइड. Why is he kissing Lois in between all of this? Why does he even have a thought about it? बाद में कर लेना आराम से, जिंदगी भर पड़ी है, क्यों? भगवान हे भगवान हे भगवान. I was so disappointed when I saw that scene. And subsequently that other scene where it's like, oh, he's so hot. ठीक है, वो तो फिर चलेगा, कोई बात नहीं. um, I yeah, I think I'm बोलना क्या हुआ. हे भगवान, अभी मुझे रैप अप करना पड़ेगा तेरे लिए, रुक जा. Okay. um I think we have discussed most of the things, most of my narrative issues with the film, with Man of Steel. And I think we can, anything else you would like to add. If you disagree, you can, again, you can write in the comment section. I would like to give a shout out to Arun Ayer, who has been supporting us massively. So Arun, if you're listening to this, thank you. Thank you for your contribution to keeping the channel alive and keeping us motivated to, um, you know, creating content. All right. Thank you for watching. Do let me know if you want me or Vignesh and I to cover more of the TCEU, because we do have disagreements, and um, that does lead to entertaining content for all of you. But it is fun for us to do that as well. So thank you for watching. As always, like, share and subscribe if you enjoyed. And we look forward to having you again. Thank you.